Mansfields Melbourne is brought to you by Hudson Bond Real Estate, building for your future and assuring you of personal attention at all times. Hello again and welcome to Mansfields Melbourne. It's Thursday and we have another information-packed program for you. Tonight we'll learn about home brewing. A Melbourne man discusses his Beaut Bins, a new way to look at your rubbish, and a Croydon man tells us about investment. Plus, Calire Halliday brings us the latest in news around Melbourne. But first, let's see what's making news tonight, Thursday, March the 20th. And a rental accommodation crisis exists in Dandenong, according to two state Labor politicians. Eddie Micallef and Jan Wilson say that young people and low-income families are having difficulty in obtaining private rental accommodation. Rents have increased about 8% in the area over the past 12 months. Moonee Valley Council has been told it could face a bill of more than $200,000 in its bid to stop the Nidri quarry being filled with toxic waste. The council has already spent $75,000 on submissions outlining its objections to the scheme. Nearby at Meadow Heights, local police are investigating the theft of 8 cars in a 3-hour spree. The gang is believed responsible for the spree, in which 3 of the vehicles were torched by the offenders. And a pergola at Box Hill Mall is being demolished to deter drug pushers from congregating in the area. The council is working with local police to combat the drug problem in the district. The pergola, seating and walls are being removed this week. And at Mornington Peninsula, a woman is likely to face charges after throwing tomatoes at speakers at a council meeting, and they were right, including the councillors. That's the news to this moment from Mansfields Melbourne. Home brewing your own beer has been a particularly interesting pastime for a lot of people, not only to save money, but also to get additional tastes from the beer that they enjoy. Mike Rogers-Wilson from the Australian Home Brewing Company of Hughesdale and Heidelberg is with me in Mansfields, Melbourne. Hello, how are you?
Hey, Bruce.
Mike, good to have you with us. Is home brewing popular as it was some years back?
Oh, I think so, yes, it's growing, with, especially in days of budgetary restraint and so forth.
Yeah, well that's when we took it up in the 70s, I vaguely remember. Everyone had a home brewing kit. Yeah. But in those days there was a bit of sediment in the bottom and it looked a bit cloudy and it never sort of worked. Are there new...
well, the quality of the beers these days has improved a lot.
Is it?
Yes, it's very easy to make better beer than commercial beers in a lot of ways.
Is that right?
Yeah, more natural tasting, no preservatives, no additives.
Is it as good as your off-the-shelf beer at a hotel?
Most keen home brewers would vow and declare that it was better. They would prefer their own beer to commercial beers.
Because I suppose you can make it malty, you can make it less heavy or lighter, whatever it might be.
That's right, yeah.
Can you alter the alcoholic content?
Yes, you can. You can vary it from anything from about 3% up to about 10 or 12%.
Yeah. And I suppose there are tricks now on how long they can it ferments, etc.
Yeah, well, that's all pretty straightforward, and you know, anyone can do it. It's a terribly easy hobby.
Now you're offering free beer if you're not happy with the results. Tell us about that.
Well, we figure that if we're asking someone to buy our product, we expect them to enjoy it, and if they don't, we're prepared to give them their money back regardless.
You've got 2 books that you're giving away free, I understand, at both addresses, which I'll give shortly for you. Tell us what these books entail.
Well, this book here, the first one, is just a book on making beer, on the hobby itself, and making improved beers from kits. The second book is a reference book for people who make kit beers. Yes. They're the most common brewers around, and that's full of material on how to make kit beers better than the standard offering. Okay, those books are free, incidentally, at the Australian Home Brewing Company in Hughesdale. They're in Hughesdale and at number 50 Burgundy Street, Heidelberg. That's the Australian Home Brewing Company in Hughesdale and in Heidelberg at number 50 Burgundy Street, and their phone number is 9455 1311, 9455 1311, and those books would be well and truly worth picking up, I would suggest. They certainly would, yeah.
What are you saving with a bottle of beer? Have you been able to ascertain that?
Yes, you save about 80 to 90%. You're making it for about 1/10 to 1/5.
Give me a price.
You can make an ordinary Australian beer for around 40 cents a large bottle. You can make a really good quality German beer for 50 to 60 cents a bottle.
And what would that sell?
Well, the Australian beer is be $2 to $2.50 a bottle.
You're making it for about 80 cents.
You're making the Australian beer for about 40 cents.
Geez, not bad. That's a good story from the Australian Home Brewing Company. Thank you very much indeed, Mike Rogers-Wilson, for being with us.
Thanks, Bruce.
Thank you very much for being with us on Mansfields Melbourne. Back with more in a moment. I don't know about you, but my bin, the wheelie bin, smells terribly. It's like a camel or something like that. Here's a man who's doing something about it. Peter Nolan from Beaut Bins, B-U-T-E. How are you, Peter?
Good, thank you, Bruce.
Well, I'm not alone. I think most of our bins, after a period of time, gets very messy, and you don't know how to clean them.
They sure do.
Deodorise, or what do you do? This is where you come in.
Yes, we high pressure clean, deodorise, disinfect your wheelie bins. They're left in that nice state where you don't have to block your nose as you lift the lid on your bin.
It really is a difficult thing to clean, because if you're going to use antiseptic or Pina Clean or something like that, you'd need a gallon of it.
That's right.
But you come in with a high pressure hose and deodorant or detergent?
Yes, as you've seen from the photo just shown, we've got a self-contained unit, a trailer set up where we throw the bins inside the trailer. No water in the high pressure cleaning process is allowed to escape onto the street. So we keep the EPA and Melbourne Water happy. Nothing's getting down the stormwater drains.
So it's all within this tank.
That's right.
The bin is put in there, cleaned, and the water taken away.
Yes, the water's taken away.
Whose idea was it? Because you're only a young person. Did you start it yourself?
Yes, we did. We started just a couple of weeks back.
Well, I think that's a great
seems
idea.
to be taking off quite well.
And where did the idea come from, Peter?
Possibly just the case of putting your own bin out at home.
Yes.
Obviously lifting the lid, as we said, and getting that nasty odour.
Yes.
I thought there's potential here.
So people will ring you, and at a certain time, it's left on the nature strip, you'll come over, clean the bin and leave it there.
We do the washing the day of collection of the rubbish, so obviously the bin's empty and also out on the street for us.
Right.
We give people the option, residents and also councils and so forth, the opportunity to take on either a weekly, fortnightly or monthly cleaning.
It's a bit of, I'd have thought maybe the councils could do something, but I suppose that their work is pretty well all up collecting.
Yeah, that's one of the sideline things that we're trying to look at is getting in with the councils, the likes of the street bins in your shopping centre and your regional streets.
Yeah.
How often do you go to the bin? And obviously most residents would put rubbish in a bag and then in their bin, whereas the council bins in the street, rubbish goes straight in, so what do they look like?
Now listen, for a clean deodorised bin, I think this is a marvellous service, and I always commend young people for having a bit of nous and foresight like you, Peter. It's only $3 per wash.
That's right.
You could stick the baby in there with it.
Maybe not.
No, maybe not, but it's only $3 a wash.
That's right.
A clean, hygienic bin you could have every week if you impart that small amount.
And we're not only restricted to the bin washing either, because we're set up with the high pressure cleaning unit. Driveways, footpaths that get a bit mossy in the middle of winter, we can clean them all down so they're not slippery.
What a great idea. This is rubbish bin cleaning and repairs, concrete cleaning, and bins cleaned too. It's all here, thank you, good. Beaut Bins. You can phone Beaut Bins 737 0877, 9737 0877. Peter Nolan, a terrific idea from Beaut Bins. You deserve to do very well on that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for being part of Mansfields Melbourne.
Thank you.
Good on you, Peter. We'll be back with more in just a moment. You know, many people require very specialised financial advice, and from Croydon, Phillip Jones of the Accountants Investment Group is with us, and he's the right man to give the advice to people out Croydon way. How are you, Phillip? Welcome to Mansfields Melbourne.
Thank you.
Well, what sort of advice are people seeking in the 90s as opposed to 20, 30 years ago?
The right advice, I dare say, to try and establish what to do with their income, how to plan for their retirement, because they're going to live a lot longer than when suddenly getting to 65 years of age and suddenly finding, hey, the pension's not going to be quite what I need to survive.
Right.
So they've got to start planning.
Now, were you an accountant first up?
Yes.
And how is it that you've now gone into financial planning and rollovers and superannuation and retirement?
Well, it's just one of the facets that your business develops into. With the simplification of taxation laws that they're looking at, you need to be able to move on beyond taxation, and this is one of the areas that you move into.
Now, you're an authorised representative of PACT, P-A-C-T. What does that stand for?
It stands for Seal Corp, basically. It's a group that has been set up under the Seal Corp banner to offer investment advice for accountants.
Right.
And through that group, they offer the work. They do a lot of the analysis through Asgard that provides us the support to give to our clients.
Hasn't the act of money cleaned up? It's a very, you know, the accountancy and all that sort of thing is scrupulously clean nowadays, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Today you've got to know your client and know your product that you've got to sell.
Yeah, I'd say that if you had a client that didn't know about shares and stocks, you might not even gear them in that direction. You might have something else for them.
Well, no, you can't do that even. You need to establish what their goals, what they want to do.
I see.
And then you would attempt to steer them in the direction. You've got to do a risk profile on them. You know, there's a lot of work to do. You just can't sort of say, look, I've got $20,000 invested in such and such. We've got to do a lot more work to that.
Yeah. Well, it sounds that you're not only clever in the field of finance, but also very caring. I suppose that comes into it too.
Well, that's what we like to assume, at least anyway, yes. As I say, we spend a lot of time with our clients to try and establish what their goals are, and then from there we build on that, and you know, by offering them the taxation advice, social security advice, which is so important today, as well as investment, and if they're gearing for retirement, that's the way we need.
You're out Croydon way, and I dare say a lot of your clients come from the hills and outlying areas, Lilydale, etc.
Yes, yes. We get quite a few also from inner city as well. We've got Hawthorne. Yes.
Oh, yes, you've got other branches, have you?
Well, not so much branches, but a lot of clients coming through, yes.
Yes. Oh,
we even got interstate clients as well.
Well, if they come from interstate or Hawthorne up to Croydon, you must be doing something well.
Yes, must have the secret there.
Yes, you have. Phillip Jones of the Accountants Investment Group, and I'll give you the address, 8 Thomas Brew Lane in Croydon, and Philip's number is 97258744. That's the Accountants Investment Group Proprietor Limited. Phillip Jones, thank you for being part of Mansfields Melbourne.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll be back in just a moment.
Well, here we are again on Optus and across the board there with all of you lovely folk who are with us and watching us at home. And for that reason, we're terribly grateful. I must tell you, I'm always involved. I haven't been well, you know. I had to go and see the doctor the other day. I got to the waiting room half an hour early. I read all the magazines that were in the waiting room. Terrible about the Titanic, wasn't it? I went into the doctor and I said to him, I don't want to be rude, but there's a lady in the waiting room, 89, and she's crying. He said, I know. I told her she's pregnant. I said, she's not. He said, no, but it cured her hiccups. I said to him, I've got a bad leg. What do? He said, limp. I said, no. And in next door was a little boy in the dentist chair. The dentist said to him, now be a brave little soldier. Mummy doesn't want to hear you cry. And he came up to the little boy with a needle. And the little boy very quickly made a grab for the dentist. You work out where. And the dentist went, oh, crikey. And the little boy said, we're not going to hurt each other, are we? I came out of the surgery and there up the tree was a policeman. I said to the policeman, what are you doing up there? He said, shh, special branch. Do you know, I've got a friend, he's a bit thick in the head, near me. He was walking down the street the other day and his wife said to him, look at the dog over the road with one eye. And he said, why? Their dear old lady, there she was, and she said to him, she said, could you see me over the road? He said, I don't know, you wait there and I'll whip off over there and I'll have a look. I was up in Sydney you've heard of Sydney, it was in the Dubbo Times. I went up to a fender standing on the corner at King's Cross. I said, excuse me, I said, I'm looking for a Manly ferry. He said to me, your search is over. This elderly chap knocked on the door of a house of ill repute, and this old repute opened the door. She had a mouth like a torn pocket, terrible, rough as hessian underpants she was. She said to this elderly fellow, what do you want? He said, I want to come in. She said, how old are you? He said, 89. She said, you've had it? He said, have I? How much do I owe you? But you see, life's very good. When we went north and up to Queensland, we were there with Tom Jones. And I don't know whether you know this, ladies especially, when Tom Jones works, he walks out on the stage and girls come forward, they throw intimate parts of their apparel. They throw knickers, they throw bras, they throw slips, they throw girdle. When I walked out, they threw hearing aids and they threw seniors cards at me. But life's pretty good generally. You know this and so do I. But we've been travel overseas, always travel, you know. We never really know a lot about other people's languages because we think we're involved only with English, and that's not right. If you said thank you to people in their own language in Russia, it would be spasivo. If it was Greek, it would be efharisto. If it was Italian, it would be molto grazie. I was in Italy for a while. The Pope has a terrible affliction. You may not know, tarmac sniffing. As a matter of fact, if you doubt that, you can give him a ring. His phone number's VAT69. But if you said thank you in French, you would have merci beaucoup. If it was German, dankeschön. If you were in Egypt, the thank you would be shukran. We learn all these words. I learnt a few expressions overseas, not very many, but I stayed in with a family in France. Little bit ignorant, they thought an aperitif was a set of dentures. But little French expressions I found useful, and some of you at home may know these. Ouvrez la porte, open the port. Jette the door, shut the door. Hors de combat, the girls are fighting again. Carte blanche, they're bringing Blanche up in the wagon. Coq au vin, that's a rooster standing up and down the back of a truck. Pièce de résistance, the prostitutes are on strike. Jeanne d'Arc means the light in the toilet's gone out. I was there, and I went over to England because most of my ancestors were handpicked by the best judges in England, although I was born in Footscray. I'd have been born in Townsville, but Dad was away. And in the era I was born, Dad used to walk me to school. Well, he had to because he was in the same class as I was. And I have a brother, he's a barrister, got a big office in Melbourne. I've got a sister, she's a solicitor too. She hasn't got an office though. She makes most of her money losing her briefs. But I went over to Ireland, and in Northern Ireland there was a chap walking down the street. Fella jumped out the doorway with a gun. He said to him, "What are you, Protestant or Catholic?" The bloke said, "Jewish," and an Arab shot him. You see, we all love to have shots about all. Why not other nationalities? If it weren't for all the other nationalities, look what a lovely country we've got here in Australia. The Scotsman sitting on the kilt he's on the tram with the kilt. He's got the lot on. The inspector came along. She said, "You'll have to get off the tram or get that pup off your lap." He looked down and he said, "Oh, lass," he said, "it's not a pup." He said, "It's my spot and it goes with my kilt." And the woman next to him fainted, and they brought her two, and then they brought her two more, and they said to her, "What did you faint for?" She said, "I thought it was a pup. I've been stroking it for 3 stops." You see, everything is in the eye of the beholder. We all get different opinions of different places, but remember, life is, people always say to me, "How are you today?" And I always have the same answer. Considering the alternative, I'm terrific. You better believe it. One story before I must go. Big funeral going down the street. In front of the hearse was a gentleman with a dog, big German Shepherd, Alsatian dog. Lovely funeral. There were the floral carts, all that. After that, the morning, and then all behind all those flowers in the coffin, 983 men, all marching in single file, left, right, for about 4.5 miles. I use old measurements because my watch tells the time in metric. But there they were, down the road. Fella went up to the chap with the dog, and in front of the funeral, he said to him, "It's a big funeral." And the chap said, "Yes, it's my wife." Now he did what you do and I do. He flanelled. Nice dog, lovely, and a nice coffin, and a lovely hearse, and a lovely lot of flowers, and what a nice lot of men, all in single files marching left, right, all down there for 900, and a lovely dog. Your wife must have been very attached to the dog. The fellow said, "No, as a matter of fact, that's the dog that mauled her to death." And the fellow said, "I don't suppose I could borrow him, could I?" And the chap said, "Sure, hop in the queue." Now, that's the story of tragedy in one man's place. But let's face it, we all have a spot that we love best of all. And sitting at an organ here, which is one of the world's top theatre organists, we travel a lot together. I wish he'd play the piccolo, which is bloody sight easier to carry. But here's a little piece. Maybe you know it, maybe you don't. It came out to Australia in a show called Mary, and that was in the year 1920. A couple of people had it as their theme song, played very slowly. I've had it for a lot of years myself. I hope I know the words. And the piece, the couple that had it as their theme song was George Burns and Gracie Allen. And Gordon, a nice, oh look, what a pity, half the notes are dirty, they're all black there. Well, if you could do your best, would you mind, please? Like the coat, that's nice. He's the house model for St Vincent de Paul, you know. All right, thank you, Deb. Just a love nest, cosy and warm, like a dove rest down on a farm, a veranda with some sort of clinging vine, then a kitchen where some rambler roses twine, then a small room, tea set of blue, best of all room, dream room for two, better than a palace with a gilded dome is our love nest we can call home. God bless you. Lovely to be with you. Thank you. And thank you, Gordon. Thank you.
Down the Peon Highway to Andy from Diveline. Andy, good day. How are you?
Good, thanks, mate.
Now, Diveline is not a bar or something like that. It sounds, where are you going tonight? Oh, off to Diveline. No, it is a scuba diving equipment and training
facility. That's right, yes.
How did you get into it, Andy?
Well, I started when I was back in Scotland. I was staying with a friend who was the National Diving Officer in Scotland.
Yes.
And I was about 15 at the time.
Right.
And I decided to take up the sport of scuba diving.
Do many people do that, Andy?
It's a growing sport, actually.
Now,
yes.
where do you go mainly? The best place in Victoria?
Best places, well, Victoria, probably around near the Heads.
Yeah.
Down in Port Phillip Bay.
Right.
Is very, very good. There's a lot of drop-offs, a lot of walls to dive on.
Yes.
And for the less experienced, there are the annulus at Pope's Eye.
Yeah.
There, which is very
Isn't there
good.
some sort of cave off Sorrento, Portsea? There is a huge
Well, it's
hole.
called Portsea Hole. That's
That's
right.
right.
Yes, you must have heard of that.
Yeah, I have.
That's where we take our students on probably their 4th dive.
Yeah.
And they go down and they feed the fish there.
Terrific.
Oh, it's excellent. Really
How
good.
much does it cost, say, a course? I've never scuba dived, so I've
Right.
come into you.
Okay, well, the course costs $395.
Yep.
And that includes all the equipment, hire,
Oh, that's
the
all
whole
right.
lot. And at the end of it, you get an internationally recognised certificate.
Gee, that's good.
All right, which means you can dive anywhere in the world up to 18 metres.
Yes.
The course consists of shore dives and boat dives.
Right.
But first of all, we start off in the pool doing theory work and pool, where we basically do gear, equipment, that sort of thing.
Because this will enable you to go to places like Hawaii, you know, if you're
That's right.
overseas,
Oh, yes,
and
look,
to hire equipment and see
fantastic.
stuff that people wouldn't normally see.
That's right. The Barrier Reef is even closer, and that is a brilliant place to go and visit. There's so much colour, the myriad of colour down there.
Yes.
But back in Victoria, there's even more to see because there's such a variety. We have, as I said before, drop-offs. We've got seal dives to do.
Oh, you can see seals.
Yes,
Yeah,
you
of
can
course,
see the
there's
seals.
dolphins as well down there.
Exactly, that's right.
Is our bay pretty good as far as underwater life?
Yes, it is. Yeah. I guess the only negative thing would be that, like the scallop dredges and things like that came along, but hopefully now that they've been stopped.
Yep.
Now, sorry.
For anyone interested, Diveline is at 6 Young Street in Frankston, and Andy's number is 9783-7166. Anyone interested in scuba diving? This is the spot, Diveline. Thanks, Andy.
Thank you very much.
This is the Community News. I'm Calire Halliday. Coburg's historic Progress Cinema could be threatened by a new $25 million 25-screen cinema proposed for the Sydney Road Shopping Centre. The Progress Cinema in Reynard Street was built 70 years ago and survived competition from television, but the huge proposal may just be too big to deal with. At Country Nagambie, the green light has been given for the 1998 Australian Rowing Championships and King's Cup Regatta on Lake Nagambie. The Board of Rowing Australia made the unanimous decision last week at their meeting in Sydney. The HBA Medical Fund is withdrawing rebates to members using Don Vale Rehabilitation Hospital, according to the Doncaster Templestone News. A hospital spokesman said he was concerned for elderly patients who would no longer be able to afford care at the centre. And on the Mornington Peninsula now, jobs have been found for about 80 of the 150 outdoor staff sacked by the council. Some extra jobs have been found, but they are only available in faraway Altona. Well, that's all for now. Back to you, Bruce.
Thank you, Calire Halliday, for the Community News. And that's it for another night in our city. We've learned about home brewing, we've learned about Beaut Bins, and discovered about investing your money. And this is Thursday, March the 20th, back again tomorrow night. This is the birthday, by the way, of wartime singer Dame Vera Lynn, known for We'll Meet Again. And also the day that John Lennon married Yoko Ono, on this day back in 1969. And that's it for Mansfields Melbourne for tonight. Join us tomorrow at the same time. Good night. Mansfields Melbourne is brought to you by Hudson Bond Real Estate. Building for your future and assuring you of personal attention at all times.